This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 162 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by Finishline Fencing, the original and only warranted horse fence of its kind. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network, and today we have some great guests on. We've got the inventor of the barcode now, and he's an old cowboy now. He's got horses, and I love it. He's got a great story. And we've got Marty Irby and Monty Roberts and Donna Benefield on too, and they are doing amazing work. She has worked in Hollywood and has known everybody in this world of horses in Hollywood. And I think they've got something really important to say and some fun information about the Tennessee walking horse. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. The Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month. And as always, I have my producer, Jen, with me today. Hi, Jen.
Greetings.
Hi, Jen. I'm so glad to have you back on, and I wanted to brag on us for a bit.
Brag on you. I know. The big event of the season just happened, didn't it?
Oh, it was my biggest event all year, and it worked. It was wonderful.
We had rain on you.
No. Oh,
you
my
didn't
gosh.
lose power.
Summertime. No, we didn't lose power. No, it's beautiful. Everybody was beautiful.
Well, tell everybody what it was.
Talent. The Movement 2020. This is our 3rd annual now. And we had some hiccups through the COVID thing, not knowing what we were going to do, right? But we finally got to settle on staying legal. We couldn't have an audience there, right? No gathering, but we could have, of course, working farm. And so we had Dr. Madison Siemens, brilliant on the equine vision. And behavior, and he's just a genius on all that, just outside the box thinker, working with Monty, of course, which would be just like, isn't that the best? And then, of course, Jamie Jennings was his right-hand person, a certified instructor. That was fun because they just played off each other, using the horse as the podium and screen is the way we were describing it, because they could, instead of a PowerPoint. That would be ridiculous.
We had a real live horse, yeah.
We had a real live horse.
Well, for people who want to go and check it out, because the movement is kind of an all-encompassing 30,000-foot view of the latest in enlightened horsemanship. So it happened, and you guys streamed it via Horse and Country TV, did it for you. Can we still see it now that it's done?
You can. It'll be on demand. Just go to the website, www.themovement2020.com. You'll get all the information you need there and how to see the on demand.
That's really cool. Now, if I have a poor memory, which I do, if I go to montyroberts.com, am I going to be able to eventually find my way to the movement?
The tab at the top has the movement on it. Thank
Brilliant,
you.
Debbie.
You're
Brilliant.
So smart. That is a very good question.
Because I can remember montyroberts.com. I can remember
that. Very good. Yeah, because there's a lot of information there too, but we made it real easy by putting a tab at the top.
There we go. Well, that was pretty epic.
Yes.
It was pretty epic.
Like none other.
And it's going to be even better next year because it's annual, and crossing our fingers, we'll be able to have lots of live folks show up for it next year.
That's right. It'll be really fun. It'll be that experience everybody was hoping to have this year, but this one was different. I think we kind of set a bar. It was really different.
Yeah. I maybe next year you'll have both. Maybe next year
we might
have it streamed as well as for folks who want to show up in person, because sometimes people very much want to witness it, but being able to travel to Flag Is Up's farm,
a lot to ask.
Not always available, and you can only fit a limited number of people there.
That's true,
right?
That is exactly true.
Yeah, I'm voting for that option. Both
a hybrid, right? Yeah. It's kind of like a hybrid, right? Yeah. We have an event, but we don't. And what we might do is we rolled over the tickets so that really the live streaming was something provided, and then people could keep their ticket for next year. So we've already got the dates for that in June. And so I think people really want to get together. So we might have a thing where it sells out at a certain level, and then after that you can get the streaming. Yeah. And so get in while you can when the tickets become available. But also, don't feel like if you're in Dubai or something that you don't have to make that trek and buy a hotel room and all those things too. So there, a hybrid is kind of a fun idea now that we know we can do it.
Speaking of epic things, we've got an epic show coming up with 2 incredible guests, and we're going to get right to that after we hear from our title sponsor, Finishline Fencing.
Well, I'm here again with Kim and Lisa, and we're talking about Finishline fencing because I get a lot of questions from people who are trying to put up one thing or another, and they know now about Finishline fence and your product. But here's some of the questions that I get, or at least one biggie. What's the difference between Finishline fencing, the original, and Finishline XL?
Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. Like I mentioned before, the original Finishline has actually been out for over 30 years now, and that one was actually developed for horse safety. It's 1,250 pounds of tensile strength. It's 4 millimeters in diameter, and it's available on a spool, and one spool only weighs about 24 pounds, so it's very lightweight and easy to handle. XL, on the other hand, has been out for a few years now. It is 1,850 pounds of tensile strength, 5 millimeters in diameter, and it really just adds to the visibility, that thicker diameter to it.
So that's the main feature of that, is so that you can see it a little bit more from a distance aesthetically, or for visibility for the animals?
Yes, that was one of the main reasons. And actually, it was an answer. We came up with this because a lot of our customers keep their cattle and the horses together. We needed to come up with a solution for them. So we needed something a little higher tensile strength. So by increasing the diameter, which gave you the beautiful line to look at and more visibility, it also gave you that added tensile strength. So that way, the horses and cattle, when they were worried about not being strong enough at 1,250, the original. So a lot of people, we came out with this, and it's actually very popular. Still very economical, and it's really in high demand right now. I'll put it this way: 30 years ago, we used to sell about 1% black. Now it's about 3% black, and I think it's more of a trend in style.
You know, if you've got both colors available, they should counsel with you on what's going to be the best look and the best safety for their horses for their particular region. I imagine green backgrounds versus sandy Arizona backgrounds, might make the difference. Thanks for sharing all that too. So where do people find you? How do they get a hold of you?
So there are a few different ways that you can reach us. You have a website. It's finishlinefence.com. Our Facebook page is Finishline Fence, or you can give us a call at 877-625-6100. You can order online. We have a full shop on our website. You can give us a call. We'd be happy to get you a quote for free. And we do ship out daily and worldwide as well. We're very quick on shipping. We usually ship out the same day, if not the next business day.
From an early age, Paul McEnroe developed from his father a love of horses, ranching, and the West. However, the only fields available were fields of dreams, as home was a modest home in the middle of Dayton, Ohio. But at the University of Dayton, Paul went to grad school at Purdue, where in his student saddle club, he found his first opportunity to ride. He taught himself to ride and jump, too, from library books, dutifully following the recommendation not to use stirrups. Upon graduation in 1960, Paul married, moved to California, and began an engineering career working at IBM, and pursued an additional graduate degree from Stanford. In 23 years at IBM, he developed numerous products the world depends on to this day, including the UPC BARCODE, the BARCODE wand, and laser scanners. He's done amazing things, and the original IBM PC keyboard was under his tutelage. Later at Trilogy, he developed the multi-chip module. All of these products have been featured in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And Paul co-founded the McEnroe Reading and Language Arts Clinic at UCSB, was president of the Santa Barbara County Cattlemen's Association, and serves on a number of nonprofit boards. In retirement now, he raises horses and cattle on Rancho La Purisima in the Santa Ynez Valley, on which he and his wife Tina reside and entertain their grandchildren. Well, welcome, Paul McEnroe. How are you today?
I'm absolutely great.
I'm glad. I'm so happy that we can finally have you on. You're part of my sort of legacy series for the Santa Ynez Valley. You're just iconic there. And I know you don't consider yourself that, so I will say it out loud. But it's really fun to get to know so many great horsemen in the valley, and you be one of those. But it's also really interesting to hear backgrounds of those people that end up in the horse industry and one form or another. And, it's one of those things that a lot of people aspire to finally leave the city and get out on a horse and ride into the sunset, basically doing whatever you want. You're an interesting guy in that you use different saddles in your lifetime too. You've ridden some different horses too. So I thought it would be fun if you told us a little bit about your childhood with horses. I know it wasn't much with horses, but it must have been enough to spark something in you to want to look further. Yeah. And then I want you to tell me about Ireland, after that. But tell me a little bit about that desire, that seed that got planted young.
Okay. Well, sure. So, I got my love of the horses, I think, from my father. I was very close to my dad. We were a family that didn't have very many resources, living in the inner city of Dayton, Ohio, which was a great place, but no space and no resources to speak of. So no thought of ever even having a horse or whatever. I had a dog, which was great.
Yeah.
But my dad, who had an interesting life, he had grown up in Iowa. His parents died when he was nearly born. And he was taken in as an indentured servant and worked on a farm, but they never sent him to school. But he learned to love animals, and he raised them on the farm, and he took care of the other kids' ponies. He wasn't able to go to school, but he took care of their ponies and cleaned up for them and kept the fire going at the one-room schoolhouse. And this is a long time ago. He's much older than I. He was born in 1891. Wow. So anyway, after World War I, he met my mother, who had gone to Idaho, where her father had homesteaded a property, and met her, and they were married. And then 20 years later, they still didn't have any kids. They adopted me, picked me out of a lineup in an orphanage in Michigan, and like Cider House rule. Anyway, so I came home, and I didn't know I was adopted. But anyway, at that time, I didn't find out until I was in my 20s. Wow. But my dad told me stories at night, about the West, and because after he had been kind of abused on this farm, he ended up stealing a horse and running away from the situation. And he got on the horse and rode it to Idaho when he was 12 years old in 1903. And
I kind of earned it, so maybe.
It was his horse that the guy, the owner, sold, and he had traded all his little animals that they gave him one at a time up for the horse. Then they sold the horse, so he went and stole the horse back and rode it to Idaho, and he ended up in a little silver mining town and ended up being the barber of the town, and he was a barber the rest of his life. So they came back, and as I said, 20 years later, they adopted me. And I just listened to these stories about the West, and he had heard the same thing, go West, young man, which he did when he was 12 on the back of a horse. And so anyway, I did get that chance. I mentioned the ranch in Idaho that the family had. And so I had an aunt who lived out there, and another aunt took me out one time when I was 10 years old, and they brought the little horse from the neighboring ranch over, and I got to sit on that. And on the way out, I stopped in Iowa, and I got to sit on a 2,000-pound draft mare. Mm-hmm. And I loved that. So anyway, march on, and I go to school, and I happened to be at Purdue graduate school, and they had a saddle club, and I joined the saddle club, and it was just nose to tail riding, which was pretty boring, but nevertheless it was a horse. But they had these great horses, and they said if you could ride those horses, it would really be great, because one of them had been a state chicken jumper. But you had to pass a test to ride the horse. Well, I couldn't pass a test because I had never ridden a horse before. So
essentially,
being a student of engineering, I went to the library. This is before phones or anything like that, and I read some old books written by some of the classic guys, from the 1920s and 30s. And so on, first forward seat riding Capelli, and so on and so forth. And so I just did whatever he said. So I got up, I had to be up in the middle of the night to work on my computer, because that's the only time you could get computer time in those days. Computers were just coming out. And so at 3:00 in the morning, I'd go out to the field and find the horses. And I went out and I fed this horse oats and stuff out of a bucket, because, I didn't tell you, they told me that you didn't have to take the test if you could stay on this horse in the arena for 5 minutes. because he had been known to get rid of all the riders. And so I studied how to, fix a horse. I found out what he did.
You engineered the ride?
Backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, he reared up and went over backwards whenever you put weight in the stirrup. So I borrowed a saddle and I put the saddle on him, and I went out and I experimented with putting weight in the stirrup. Sure enough, you just stand on the ground next to it, push your foot, put your hand down, put a little pressure on the stirrup. He'd rear up and fall over backwards. But I finally found out he loved me because he followed me all around, and I gave him oats every night for 3 weeks.
And he didn't have to flip over anymore, right? So I
know. And so I told everybody I'm ready to take the test, and they had like 150 students lining the arena to see the boy.
Yeah.
Paid tickets. And he just walked around like a gentleman, And so anyway, that was my first horse. Later on, long story, I won't tell you. I was able to lease the horse for the rest of my time at Purdue, and I just loved him. And then I got married, came to California, and it was, I was going to school at Stanford and working at IBM in San Jose, and I had no time for horses. And if you want the Irish story, I'll throw it in right now.
I love the Irish story. I want the Irish story. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a decade later, and I haven't ridden in that decade, IBM sends me on a trip to Europe. It was kind of a reward trip for some stuff I'd done. And we were going to spend a weekend in Ireland and then start the business trip in London the next day. And so I went over there, and at the last minute, long story again, I won't tell you all the details, but my wife couldn't make it. So I'm alone. But my wife and I had scheduled a weekend in Ireland. And so I landed from Aer Lingus at Shannon Airport. And we got off the plane, and I went up for the tour that we had signed up to take. And I thought, okay, I'll just take the tour. It was a castles and pubs tour around Ireland for 2 days, 3 days. And so I went to the beautiful young lass at the counter and said, I'm Paul McEnroe. I'm here to take the tour. Oh, why? Wow, me. It's just, you're the only people signed up. So it's just you and your wife and me on the tour. And so, wait a minute, the wife didn't make it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, this is obviously not going to work. So I said, what else can I do? And she says, well, we have all these different things. And she said, what would you like to do? So I said, well, on the way over, I saw these beautiful pictures in the Aer Lingus magazine about fox hunting. Oh, yeah. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who has a horse. I'll set you all up for that tomorrow morning, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. So tomorrow morning, at some ungodly hour, somebody comes to my hotel room and they say, yeah, we're here to take you to the horse,
Did you have the clothes that were appropriate for this at all?
I was wearing IBM wingtip brogues, IBM dress pants, a chartreuse turtleneck that I had brought along for, social things, and no helmet.
And no helmet.
That was it.
Yeah. Well, what would you need a helmet and a boot for? Yeah.
Yeah. And no boots. Yeah. And so the guy takes me out to this place near Adair in Western Ireland, and it's a thatched roof house, and the horse lives in one half and the people live in the other half.
Of course.
And so he says, well, where's your saddle? I don't have one of those either. So, oh, well, I'm sorry, we don't have a saddle. Well, wait, here's an old flat saddle. We can put that on. So old farmer's flat saddle.
Oh, good.
One that's 7.5 hand, gray gelding, right? And now remember, I haven't been on a horse in 10 years. And then it was just that horse at Purdue before that. Anyway, he puts the horse in a trailer and he takes me to the meet. And I get to the meet, and there's like 100 horses and 100 riders. And they're all decked out. They're in pink coats and black coats and everything. It's top hats. And here I am in a chartreuse turtleneck with IBM pants.
It didn't stick out at all, I'm sure.
And I said, well,
horse.
They introduced me to the master. The farmer takes me to the master, introduces me, and I said, well, sir, I can see I'm not dressed and it's improper, and it's okay, no problem. I'll just go back to the hotel. He said, no, we love you, Californians. And we don't get you very often, And then he turns to the farmer and he says, I'll tell you, he says, I want you to ride to the front. He says, don't stay to the back. It's been raining solid for 6 weeks now, and you'll be to your knees in the muck at every wall, every fence, And the farmer says, oh, sir, he says, you needn't worry at all about that. He said, we've rented him the the big gray gelding, the 5-year-old with the mouth of steel, he'll be to the front like it or not,
The mouth of steel. Yeah.
And so I thought that was great. And so anyway, I hunted for 6 hours that day, and spent the next day, most of it in a bathtub trying to get unsore. It was an amazing event. Yeah. I mean, there were places where we rode through farmers' fields. I mean, little house paddocks, and they got a car out there with a trailer behind it, and the first horses through are jumping the trailer, and then the hitch, and then they're jumping the trailer, and then they're jumping the car. The farmer's in the car holding his hands over his head like a Volkswagen, and I mean. It was pretty amazing.
Like 100 horses in this, huh? What a thrill! And did you stay in the front too? Or
I stayed as close as I could. I made the whole thing. I don't think there were 20 or 25 maybe that finished after the 6 hours. And toward the end, I'm running down a hill across a side hill, and there's a road. The road's dirt, and on either side of it is a ditch, and on either side of the ditch. But between the ditch and the road are bushes and all that kind of stuff, Mm-hmm. And so you come flying across there, and you got to jump the stone wall and the bushes and land on the road, and then one more stride, and then you're jumping the other side. And I think I lost a stirrup on one side, and I lost another stirrup on the other side. We're galloping down the hill, and this Irishman comes in. He's got this top hat on. He's sitting very well. And I'm just getting my stirrups back, and we're still galloping. And he says, "Me boy." He says, "You need a drink, And so
you need a drink.
His flask. Now, by the way, it's pouring rain the whole time.
Of course, it's Ireland.
He reaches out his flask. So I'm not a drinker. At that time, I was kind of a teetotaler, but I figured, I need it now. So I reached over to get the drink, and it was like he was teasing me. He kept pulling it back. What is going on here? Why is this guy offering me I think it was brandy and port. Why am I being offered this? And he keeps pulling it back. And he's saying something each time I can't understand it. Finally, I figure it out. He's saying, "Me boy, don't grab it with your hand around the bottom. Put your hand over the top so the water doesn't get in." He's worried about diluting his brew. That's Irish.
That's very Irish. Yeah, that's all right. I have Irish relatives. I can say that out loud too. So that's fantastic. Everybody should have some kind of crazy experience like that on horseback sometime where they can share that story. That's a great story. And so how did you? I mean, I know that you end up with a cattle ranch, and you're on the cattlemen's board, and you're completely Western now, or have been. You also still do foxhound events, I think. Aren't you still on a board of the? Are you a master of the hounds? You're a master of the hounds.
Yeah, I'm the master. Yeah, I've been the master since '97. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So, and how do you get to the Santa Ynez Valley, and how do you stay with horses when you've become one of the more famous? I'm sure one of the more famous employees at IBM, in that you're involved with the barcode and so much technology that we all use today. All of us are. So, I mean, how do you? Yeah,
well, basically, the quick version of that is, I spent my career at IBM, and I did start breeding. Well, when my daughter turned 6, my oldest, I went and bought her a pony, a shingatake pony of all. And then I, was leaning on a post watching her go around in circles. I thought, this is terrible. I could get myself a horse. So I bought a horse too. And then I decided, well, I got to make a business out of this. I was becoming a businessman, So even though I was working full time at IBM, I bought a little 5-acre property, and we put some horses on it. Then I went off to Kingland and bought some racehorse broodmares and started breeding horses. That was in 1972. And so I bred horses all the time I was at IBM, but I only had, I started off with 5 acres, and then I got 25 and so on. But whatever, that went for 25 years. And at the end of not quite 25 years, I moved to California, was offered the presidency of a company called Trilogy Systems Corporation, which had been founded by Gene Amdahl, one of the geniuses of the world. And we made the biggest computers in the world at that time using wafer scale integration. So I left IBM to do that. I came out here, and, I did the Trilogy thing for about, actually I worked out a merger for Digital Equipment Corporation to buy Trilogy, which they did. So that went from about 84 to 94. And then in 84, when I moved to California, I switched from raising thoroughbred racehorses to warm bloods. And so we raised warm bloods. So I bought 5 acres in Los Gatos, California, Northern California, near Trilogy, which was in Cupertino. And I always had desire to be a rancher. I always wanted to be a cowboy, but I didn't have any time, no time. And so I said, I'm retiring at 55, period. And 55 came along. I had lost a wife to a car accident 4 years before.
Yeah.
But then several years later, my daughter was in Santa Barbara, and she had a couple of my horses down here. And another lady, who's now my wife, Tina, had daughters, and they rode at the same stable. And we met, and we got married. And she's a cowgirl, queen of the Salinas Rodeo, and so on and so forth. And so trained by Monty Roberts' parents.
Yeah.
And so I retired in 1994 and I wanted to buy a ranch. So, we looked in the Santa Ynez Valley. Luckily, Brooks Firestone was selling his wonderful ranch. Right. So we bought the ranch, and then we got into breeding in a big way. And I couldn't even spell cow at the time. But I learned to spell cow. And so I became a cattleman.
Yeah, you even got to cattleman.
I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, fantastic. You've contributed so much to the Santa Ynez Valley too, and not only just the equestrian world, but as a good, solid citizen too. And appreciate you being on the board and Tina's work with education, your work with education too, and all the things that you've done there. And I'd love to have you back sometime. It'd be fun to have you and Tina too, and talk a little bit about her side of the McEnroe collection there too, and her stories too. Yeah. But anyway, I am so happy to share you with our listeners, and I think they'll be thrilled with your stories. And there's more to come, I'm sure. You got any more stories up your sleeve?
It's terrible. I got so many stories.
I love it.
I'm actually I'm writing a book. I've got about the first 100 pages done now, and I'm trying to put a lot of the stories in it. But the problem is, the book is written mostly about the barcode. And I'd love to put some of the horse stories in, but I haven't quite figured out how do I get the horse stories in the barcode book?
Easy peasy. The barcode paid for the horses. So there you go. And now you just segue right in there.
Yeah.
That's what we love anyway.
Tina wants me to call it the code of a cowboy.
Oh, see, that's pretty good. See, she combined it. There you go. She segued in. She's a smart lady. Keep her. Well, Paul McEnroe, thank you so much for joining us on Horsemanship Radio.
Sure, no problem.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I'm coming to you now to talk about the Monty Roberts Online University. There ought to be 6 months in everybody's life where they just live with their animals. I've been staying home, but 3 months now, I've been home with this virus thing, and the things I'm learning. We're bringing you a new series. What horses see, how horses see, and about horses seeing things. The online university is bringing you the last 3 years of my learning process, which I promise you is the learningest years I ever spent. The Monty Roberts Online University, you won't miss a minute of it if you get started on it. I love bringing it to you, and it's my shot to take my concepts to the next generation.
Marty Irby is the executive director of the Animal Wellness Action, and he recently added Donna Benefield of Gallatin, Tennessee, to the organization's list as the organization's new senior advisor on equine protection. Benefield was instrumental in the formation of the 4 USDA-certified inspection programs over the past 30 years, where she inspected thousands of gaited horses and is the past president of the National Plantation Walking Horse Association. A lifelong horsewoman, Benefield is one of the most prominent students of the late Glenn H. Randall, Sr., who trained horses ranging from the cavalry mounts to Roy Rogers' Palomino Trigger to Gene Autry's Champion, and many other movie horses, too, featured in countless films like Ben-Hur and The Black Stallion, to name a few. A former 2-time Emmy Award-winning producer. Benefield and her late husband, Richard, worked with equines in numerous films, including the 1991 blockbuster, The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis, and the hit series, Dark Shadows. She was introduced to the world of Tennessee walking horses by the late Joan Blue, a longtime equine advocate that you'll know that worked to pass the Horse Protection Act of 1970.
Well, welcome. I've got Marty Irby, Monty Roberts, and Donna Benefield all on the line together. And I think we're in 3 different time zones, if I recall. Is that right, Donna?
Yes, I'm in the central.
You're in the central time zone. You're in Tennessee now as we speak?
Correct.
Great. And Marty, I understand you were just talking to a senator earlier today, so you must be in Washington.
I am. I'm just a few blocks from our nation's capital that doesn't have very many people at it right now.
No, that's a good point. We're in the middle of the COVID thing, too. It's so nice to have you on. Thank you. And Monty, you're not even home. You're up in San Francisco with Thoroughbred, I believe.
That's correct. I'm at Golden Gate Park in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, exciting, you guys. Well, it's wonderful. We were all able to pull you together, and we're recording this today because we've got some news, and we want to hear some news. So I'll start with you, Donna, if I could, and welcome as the new senior advisor on equine protection for the animal wellness organization that Marty has been a part of now, the animalwellnessaction.org. Very excited to have you as part of the team there because we could really use your expertise and your storied background. Tell us a little bit about how you were first introduced to Tennessee walking horses. I think it was quite a few decades ago.
Yes, thank you. Having always been horse crazy, I had originally spent a great deal of time with the movie horse trainer Glenn Randall, about 25 years with him. And at one point I decided to get some horses of my own, and I was introduced to the walking horse. And my husband and I ended up getting some horses, and I ended up taking one of the 10-year-old broodmare that was unbroke to Glenn for him to help me break her and start training her. And we started in January, and I had never been to Tennessee to the celebration, so I decided that August to go to the celebration. People said, well, you should take the horse. I said, well, she's only half. They said, well, I'd take her. She's really good. So I ended up taking her, and I ended up winning the World Grand Championship.
Is that the year you won the World Grand Championship? That's something you and Marty Irby have in common, I understand. Is that right?
Yeah. And that's sort of how it began. And then, of course, being around all of the activities that go on with the walking horses and being in the barns, I was exposed to the soaring, and I found that very bizarre.
Yeah, bizarre is an interesting word, too. So were you a little bit shocked at first, or did you jump right in there and try to change them?
No. At first, they tried to tell me that what they were putting on the legs was like ladies' face cream. Huh. And I kept thinking, well, that doesn't sound right. I don't remember putting any face cream on horses' legs at Glenn's. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't take me a real long time to finally put together what was going on. And then after I won the World Grand Championship, they did a lot of Equus and Horse Illustrated and all these different newspapers and magazines did articles on me, and I mentioned the soaring, and the people in the breed got very upset with me and said, well, you're not to mention the word soaring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sounds a little bit like most people's experience that have been around horses their life. Long careers sometimes are late in finding out about the Tennessee walking horses. What do you say to people who say, no, that can't be, I've been around horses my whole life? What do you say to that person?
Well, I tell them that that's absolutely not up for debate. I said, this is things I've personally observed, and I got together with some veterinarians, and we ended up putting together a inspection program that is certified by the USDA to fight the issue and to fight the corruption in Tennessee. And that, of course, put me on the map. And one thing led to another, and I received threats, and it's supposed to have been a contract on my life. And I testified in court in Washington, D.C. against what they did. And finally, having been in the film industry my whole life, so I got a hold of CNN, and CNN Special Assignment and I did a expose on the soaring and corruption. Mm-hmm. In, I think it was 86. And then the following year, they were still going at it and coming after me. So I thought, well, let's do another one. So I got a hold of Current Affairs and Maury Povich, and we did another one on him. And
yeah, you're a brave lady. Yeah, I understand that you had FBI protection for some parts of that. Yeah,
I got very involved.
Mm-hmm. That should say enough about who these people are that are proponents of this. Do you feel like it's a shrinking industry, Donna? Should it have gone away in your mind at this point? I know you want it to, but it seems like a crazy timeline.
Well, it has reduced in size due to the fact that a lot of people were older and a lot of them are just dying off, literally.
Yeah.
And with the help of the internet and the media exposure, well, it started off with CNN and then Current Affairs, but we didn't have the internet back then like we do now. And so the internet has really helped to just really squash what's going on and reveal what's going on. You know, people put videos on like YouTube and things about the soaring.
Mm-hmm.
And so it detracts from the breed. Now, a lot of the people, well, not a lot, but a lot of the young trainers now are actually probably sons of old trainers that have died.
Yeah.
So they're kind of carrying on the legacy, but you don't see as many people at the World Championship because the stadium used to hold about 30,000 people, and you could have a time when there'd be only standing room only. Now you could almost shoot a shotgun through there and not hit anybody. So it's been reduced in size significantly, not to mention the breed registry used to have about 20,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think its membership is down. Marty would know better the numbers. I think it's under 4,000. It's like between 2,000 and 4,000 members now compared to 20. So it's taking a hit.
Mm-hmm.
People want to be involved with a breed that's so corruption-based and abuse-based. You know, people, they don't like that kind of abuse to an animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to 3 people now who have worked, at least 30 years each. So we're talking probably closer to 125, 50 years worth of experience of people who have advocated for the horses. And I thank you all 3. Marty, maybe we should rename that celebration a celebration of a reduction in this industry. But it seems strange to me that we're telling, people of influence, whether it be in Washington or otherwise, that this is a horrible thing. It's an animal abuse problem. Why didn't that go away?
Well, I would say, the main reason that it hasn't gone away is because of political influence and money that the people in Tennessee, very close to Shelbyville and around Nashville, who are deeply involved in the Republican Party there and in Kentucky, have been well funded for many years, and they've given campaign contributions to senators and congressmen from Tennessee and Kentucky, and they've just kept things at a standstill for decades. I mean, it's a whole lot easier to prevent something from occurring in Washington, D.C. than to actually make it happen. So Donna may want to elaborate on that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the USDA was sued for allowing this to go on back in the 80s, and Judge Gash in Washington, D.C. came down with his decision in 88, and I think it was 89. They were having the trainer show, I think, when the decision came down, and the USDA was instructed to rethink their position on allowing the pads and the chains on the horse's legs. And the USDA was there to oversee the inspections that were going on for the trainer show, and it was held in Decatur, Alabama that year. And so what happened was they told them they could go ahead and go in the ring. They just couldn't wear their chains in those big stacks that they wear on the front feet.
Mm-hmm.
So Reese Smith, a guy that was very politically involved, whose son now, Steve Smith, is Lamar Alexander's campaign chairman, and he's also the chairman of the Republican Volpac Committee here in Tennessee. They got very involved politically, and they brought Mitch McConnell into the picture. And within 3 days, I was in a meeting with Mitch McConnell and all these other breeds that were impacted by the court decision, and this meeting was held in the Senate in Washington, D.C., and that was really the beginning of Mitch McConnell's involvement in this breed, and he's been heavily involved in it ever since and received hundreds of thousands of dollars from people that want to keep the soaring status quo. Mm-hmm. And Mitch McConnell has even stated that these boys have been very good to him and he'll never turn his back on them, quote unquote.
Well, there we go. At the end of this, I definitely want to give you some calls to action for our listeners to do something about it, for sure. But Dad, Monty, you've been involved with animal advocacy and good horsemanship for the bulk of your life. And what is it that you say you didn't get into the horse industry until you were 3? About that?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I was in the horse industry when I was 3, and I actually had a brush with the Tennessee walking horses at about the age of 12, but decided not to get involved any deeper than that. But I sort of sit on the side of all of this, and I haven't had my hands directly in the Tennessee walking horse industry, and maybe that's a good thing. But, in this conversation, I haven't heard the term big lick mentioned yet. And I heard World Grand Championship. And I sincerely believe that must have been the flat shod World Grand Championship.
That's right.
Is that correct, Donna?
What I won was in the flat shod division, but the big stake class that most of the Southerners here really love is the big lick stake class.
I know, but when we all, our team, let's say, when we all speak of this, I think we should never say that we won a World Grand Championship without saying in the flat shod division with no soaring at all, or even the stacks or the chains. Because people say Tennessee walking horses. And I heard on this conversation the term the Tennessee walking horse industry is not something I could support. And as Marty and I have talked many times, there is nothing wrong with the Tennessee walking horse. It's a few people in the big lick section of the Tennessee walking horse industry that we need to get rid of. And I have dealt with cruelty to horses and other animals all my life. And standing on the outside, most of the time, 99% of the time, the people that deal this tragedy to horses and other animals will give you what they believe to be good reasons why you have to do this. I'm talking now about what the Spanish and the South American people do in the breaking process, tying the horse up and beating them into submission and so forth and so on. They believe, or they say they believe, that this has to be done. Very few, 2-3%, ever sit down and say, I'm going to paint this horse with acid and burn his legs, and I'm going to stack his feet up in a totally unnatural position because I want to win a championship. It's an overt, conscious, direct attitude toward cruelness to animals that is almost entirely owned by the big lick industry.
John, and I appreciate that, Dad. I do. And I think, you've been one of those. It's a little bit like David in the Bible. You're the warrior out there. And, people are just now kind of catching up with the internet and all the things, Donna, that you've seen over the years, and Marty, you've seen over the years grow. There's more exposure. And I think people have a little hard time believing that this little hidden pocket is still there. So we want to eradicate that. We want this Tennessee walking horse breed to get back to its original natural gait. I mean, it has a beautiful gait. Marty and I have talked about that in this podcast before. And Donna, can you give us a little bit of hope? I mean, one of the sort of subtitle of Horsemanship Radio is that look forward to good stuff coming to horsemanship. We want to look to the future for that hope. So is there something that can give us hope for that?
Well, generally, in my opinion, the people follow the money. So if you end up putting enough stake money into something, then that's going to be the direction they follow. Okay. Wouldn't you agree with that, Marty?
Oh, I would. And I think that the breed is most definitely growing in the direction of the flat shod horse, and the big lick is dying off. I guess the big question is, at what rate is each occurring? And we're seeing more and more flat shod divisions added to Tennessee walking horse shows, and more people getting involved in that segment. And you might have a flat shod class that now has 25 or 30 horses in it, and a big lick class that is a world grand championship class may not even have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 horses in it today.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
good.
But you know, sitting on the outside, this is Monty speaking, sitting on the outside, let's do it this way then. Let's put up $1 billion to the person that can stab a horse's eyes out the quickest. $1 billion goes there. Well, if nobody said anything about it, somebody would get the $1 billion and stab out the horse's eyes. If there's no money allowed to be put for overt cruelty to animals, then you will see a change. It doesn't matter. You can't simply keep buying a reasonable attitude here. The Tennessee walking horse will survive, and they will beat this eventually. But it will take all of us doing everything we can to say this is wrong and this is right. There's no way that the cutting horses would have made it through if you continued to use barbed wire martingales to train them. And they did, with blood running right down to the hoof on the horse. And as soon as that came out, I know I was one of them that said, we cannot do this. The OMAC suicide race. There was $100,000 to the winner of the OMAC suicide race. So they jumped these horses off of a cliff into a river. And finally somebody said, I don't care where you put your $100,000, but you can't do this to horses. That's what we have to get through. And I would love to sit down with your politicians myself and tell them of my history. I'm 85 years old now, and I can still ride a bit and do some things. And I have worked at world-class level in 52 separate disciplines. And I have a case to make for the fact that we will all be happier when there's no overt cruelty to animals.
Absolutely. Marty, tell us the call to action that people can do once they've heard this and they say, okay, I want to make a difference. What do they do?
Absolutely. We actually have two things. First, and in the long run, most important, is we have an action alert where you can go and contact your U.S. senators. The PAST Act has already passed the House of Representatives, and you can contact your U.S. senators and you can ask them to co-sponsor the legislation. We have 52 of the 100 U.S. senators now on board, so there are still 48 more that are available to co-sponsor. And secondly, to contact the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the administrator of APHIS, Kevin Shea, who oversees the program there, has tremendous influence over what inspectors would go to Tennessee walking horse shows and when they would go. And we really want to see USDA crack down on soring, send inspectors that are going to disqualify these horses that have been sored. So we hope that people will contact them and urge them to send inspectors to the big lick shows that begin next weekend.
No, is that right?
No, yeah. Even amidst COVID-19 and all of the issues that we're having, they're still going to go on. They postponed them for a few months, but they're still going to go on with these big lick shows in Columbia, Tennessee, and Shelbyville, Tennessee. There'll be one in Columbia first, and then the second one in Shelbyville a few weeks later. But we really want to see the USDA crack down there.
Well, Marty, it's Monty again, and I would be so happy for you to pull me in to this closer. Here I am at Golden Gate Fields now in the San Francisco Bay Area, and why I am here is that an owner has paid $1 million for a filly that I've had for 5 months, and I've brought her to the track. I am here to say that you don't touch her with a whip, that you do not put a chain over her gums, that you do not do this and you do not do that. I don't even want them to chirp to her. If she doesn't want to run, she doesn't have to run. What I want her to do is want to run. Now, if I'm going that far for you not to put a recognize soft whip on a horse in a race. How does that compare to soaring the Tennessee walking horse? So that's how far I'm going to say that a good trainer can make a horse do almost anything he wants him to. But the great trainer can cause the horse to want to do it. And if we have discipline after discipline where we allow the horse to want to do it, we will be the shepherds of good horsemanship going on past our lifetimes. If we don't, we will not. And we will continue to see this kind of thing done by people who simply want to win and don't care at what cost it is to the horses.
Mm-hmm. There was some confusion between the act that passed, which was an Animal Welfare Act. It passed, and some people, was that the PACT? And you're looking for the PAST Act to pass. So,
right. Prevent All Soaring Tactics Act.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the name of it. The other one was signed into law last November.
It was. And some people believed that we passed the PAST Act when it really was that, which is a wonderful act. And we saw your photo, Marty, with President Trump and many other influencers around him signing that into. So we know that one's done, but people were not ready yet to sign that PAST Act. So we really do need their help. And we prefer people to utilize the action alert, right? So that we can track them. Is that right, Marty?
Yes, absolutely. That way we're able to track how many messages have gone into each congressional office so that then our lobbying team can follow up and say, Senator Blackburn from Tennessee or Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire, whoever it may be, that we know that 364 people contacted your office asking you to co-sponsor this legislation, and you have the support, and we're here to basically close the deal and get you to do it.
Yeah, great. And you all count. You listeners. So we need your numbers. We appreciate that. And, Marty, well, you and Monty, I think, Marty, are coming up with possibly one of the greater influencers there are out there, but there may not be anything to spill the beans on that yet. Am I right, Don?
No, I can talk. In fact, I want to say that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is the most influential world leader we've ever had on the face of this earth. And she doesn't know Donna's story. And I would love for Donna to write a concise story about what she's been through. The Queen needs to know this. And she knows now about Marty's life and what he is paid to get into this act that we're doing, the drive that we have to make this right. She knows about Marty, but she doesn't know about Donna, and I would love for her to have a quick story on Donna so that she knows what people are doing to try to make this right. And the Queen quietly influences more than anybody will ever know.
Well, Donna, can we get you that? Yeah?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Please.
Wonderful. How soon?
This lady really adores her horses.
I know.
And her dogs and all animals. And she has been so helpful to the racing industry and gets criticism for it. And do I get criticism? I wasn't even supposed to go to Shelbyville because they said I was supporting a terrible group of people called the Tennessee Walking Horse people, and I was supporting a terrible breed of horses called the Tennessee Walking Horse. And I'll support the Tennessee Walking Horse till the day I die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's not the horse; it's the people that are the problem.
That's it. We need to lock arms on that theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing that you did go, because you and Debbie and I would have never met had you not.
That's true, and I'm not sure that I would have been nearly as active in it if you hadn't stepped aside and said, "Look, I'm going another way." That really put the fire in my harness, and I'm here for you. I'm here for you, whatever you need.
Didn't you work with?
You've always been so wonderful.
Didn't he work with Bill? Not Bill. William. William, what's his name?
Yes, Monty came to Waterfall. Yes.
Yes.
Several times.
I did. I also, as a child, worked with your man that you mentioned from Hollywood.
With Glenn?
With Glenn Randall and the whole Randall organization from 1939 until 1949. For those 10 years, I did probably 180 stunt work film as a child. I was a child stunt person, the only one in Hollywood.
Wow.
My father would rent me out for anything. And I rode a lot of Glenn Randall's horses. He probably didn't even know who I was because they paid my father in cash. They used no names. I got no credit because you can't have a child doing those stunts. Well, they did.
Of course.
I can tell you, I can show you footage that would you stand your hair on end, but I didn't even know it was anything unusual because my father just kept telling me to do it.
Wow.
3 out of 5 movies made in the 40s had a child and a horse, and they couldn't find children stunt people, so my father stepped in and provided that.
Wow. And some of the things and stunts they did back in those days were pretty gruesome.
I got along with Richard Farnsworth and Joel McRae, I got the running W.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, sure you were. And that was banned in 1949, but they continued to use it secretly in various places, out in the countryside in various places. But then when it got really tough on them, they went to Mexico with it.
That's right.
And then Spain and Italy and Hungary and so forth. But it's banned globally now, the running W is. But there was a fact of people overtly, consciously hurting horses, and they killed horses, a stack of them at every movie. I cringed when I saw it, but I said, this is the way the world works, and then
right.
Richard Farnsworth and I sat down one night that I remember so well and said, this is enough. We've killed enough horses. We're doing this, and there's better ways to do this. And I'm not for banning anything. I just want to make everything better. The wild horse races in rodeo, where those horses had never been touched before, and then 3 people come and just rape them and get a saddle on them and run them in a race for a half a mile with horses running into the fence and people getting killed and horses getting killed. It just had to stop. In 1949, I went to Livermore, and the guy that drove me there got killed in the wild horse race. And
wow.
I couldn't go home. I stayed there for a week till they came and got me. But wow. I've been through it all. And I'm happy to meet with Congress people, to do whatever I need to do to bring my experiences to life and to cause them, with the stroke of a pen, to make the world a better place for horses and people too.
Now, are you indicating that the Queen would be interested in the soaring and want to speak against it?
Well, I am telling you that when the Queen learned about the soaring, she is definitely interested. Whether she would speak against it, what she does a lot of is working in the background.
I understand.
And she's so influential that way, but, she doesn't want to come out in every cause this way and that way, because all the causes, I could tell you about the causes she is working underground with if I had the right to, but I don't. But she's influential, and she doesn't mind me saying that she's influential, and she doesn't mind me saying that she loves her animals. So that'll tell you the story. And I sent her, Debbie can attest to this, and know better than I do, but I must have sent her 3 or 4 days of reading, Debbie, recently.
Probably. Yeah, probably. And she'll read it too.
Well, not only will she read it, she telephoned me. I think I can say this. Mm-hmm. She telephoned me to say, send me more.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
And I thought I was overloading her to the max. And she said, no, send me more. I want to know more about this. So the answer is she is on the team. We just have to do it her way.
Yeah. Quietly.
Mm-hmm. That's it. She's the greatest encourager. I would say that. And think about all the people that she has encouraged over all these decades. So it works.
Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is more apt to say, let's get $3 billion up for the flat shod ones, and let's get rid of this other one, and all done without anybody knowing she was influencing it. That's the kind of thing she would want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I would love to have
a more respectable or respected person on the planet, I don't think, than Queen Elizabeth. So, Monty, I think, all of the work you've done with her and even just bringing this topic to the front for her is so much appreciated by us and so many of the sound horse, flat shod, natural horsemen out there in the walking horse world that we can't thank you enough. I mean,
well, she knows Marty Irby right now as well as she knows her own grandchildren, I'll tell you. And she respects you.
That's really wonderful to hear.
Well, it's the truth. And how many people, she sent me a letter on my birthday, and she telephoned me after she got the bulk of the Tennessee walking horse things, telephoned me to say, send me more. I'm so proud of that, but I have to respect her request to keep her under the current.
Yeah. And so what I'd like to do, I've kept you all long. I just enjoyed listening. I appreciate it. What I'd like to do is have Donna, I'd love to have you back. I'd love to hear about the last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis. Some of these things that you've done, hit series like Dark Shadows, people will remember, and, get some more background on you, and then touch base again, about what the progress is with the Tennessee walking horses. Can we do that again sometime soon?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Anytime. Because I'm retired now from the film industry.
Okay.
I'm actually 73 years old, so I'm not. I started when I was young.
A child,
he says. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'll let you all go. I appreciate you, and I'd love to have you back real soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Monty, both. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol Herder here, president of Cavallo, home of the world's most trusted and popular hoof boots. One of the most interesting parts of what I do is the many horsey stories I get to hear. Most of them are really uplifting. Some are stories of challenges, and a few are downright sad. Recently, a wonderful woman took the time to approach us at a show to share a story about her horse who went down in quicksand. It started out as a really scary story. We were holding our breaths, waiting for the outcome, and it turned out wonderful. They winched the horse out relatively unscathed, albeit, a little traumatized, and everyone standing around were super amazed that he still had his Cavallo hoof boots on. Scary story with a good ending. Another testament to Cavallo. If you don't have a pair for your horse, it's time. Cavallos are easy to put on, easy to take off when you want to take them off, and they stay on. They stay on in all terrain. Cavallo, the world's most trusted hoof boots.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, how do you ride a bucking horse? I think there may be a few overfresh horses coming out at the end of lockdown with riders who will be challenged to sit a buck. I'd love to get some advice from you on the staying on part. I think I can sit a buck pretty well, as riding racehorses taught me to grip with my ankles. There are many roads to Rome, though. How does your dressage-trained rider stay on for a rodeo? Would you have some words of wisdom on this, please? Kelly. Monty's answer. Isn't it coincidental I was planning to ride Chrome today so I could school a particular thoroughbred to respond to the dually halter while being led from another horse? Since Chrome has had an uneventful month or so, I was wondering what to do with him because he will tend to buck when he's fresh. I think your idea is a good one and should be valuable to horsemen worldwide. To my way of thinking, the most important part of these fresh horse rides is what you do before you get on. Prior to putting yourself in the saddle, there's very little chance of being injured by a fresh horse, but once you have one leg on each side of him, you belong to him. The fresh horse can buck you off even if he's the kindest character you could ever imagine. It is what Equus is. Equus represents a flight animal with a world of energy and a deep temptation to buck and play, especially when fresh. Whether the bucking is entertainment for the horse or a serious attempt to get one off his back, injuries occur under either of those conditions. Before I get on Chrome today, I intend to first put him in a turnout to stretch his legs and then have him saddled and released once again in a safe enclosure, watching that he doesn't roll. While I have round pins, any small enclosure with good fencing and reasonable footing will do. I have some rectangular turnouts on our farm, which are about 20 by 40 meters. I have used these with Chrome before and found him to be very prone to buck, run, and play for about 4 or 5 minutes. After about 4 or 5 more minutes with no bucking, I then feel safe to mount. There was a time in my life where I would simply saddle a horse of this description and get straight on. I found it to be fun to have some bucking and playing under me. Remember, I spent 2 years riding bulls in professional rodeo. Do not fall into the same category. There is no fun in wearing a cast, and it's not right to subject your horse to being listed as another horse who caused an injury. It isn't fair to this species, and we should show them far more responsibility than my former actions would express. Injuries are not fun to horses or humans, and if you followed my techniques from the beginning with your horse, I would suggest to even resort to long lining experience in the early stages in the process of training one, now for rides or pleasure. Somewhere in my 8 books, I suggested that one of the golden rules of good horsemanship is to print with a bold red marker on a piece of paper, safety first. Place one of these reminders in your tack room, another in your feed room, one in your car, one more in your fridge that you visit several times a day. The lack of attention to safety has caused more people to give up on horses because of irresponsible accidents or even just the fear of having an accident because of the dangerous behavior of the horse involved. People tend not to admit that they gave up on their horse interest because of fear. The fact is, however, a huge percentage of these people give up on their horses, at least in part by a fright they received.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to MontyRoberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, 2-legged and 4-legged. August 3 through 7, it's the Monty Special Training. Then August 17 through 28 is the Gentling Wild Horses course. And September 11 through 13, we have our next Horse Sense and Healing and our CHA Equine Facility Management certification at Flag Is Up Farms in Solvang, California.
And you can find out all that and more when you go to the website, MontyRoberts.com. Want to be old school? Want to talk to a real human being? You can give him a call on the phone, 805-688-6288. And for details about today's show, you can go to horsemanshipradio.com, where you're going to find links, photos, and more information about today's guests and topics. And we want feedback. That's how Debbie gets these great ideas for all these great guests. Go to social media. That would be Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And like and follow Monty Roberts on Facebook. It's Monty Roberts, the one with the blue check mark. And on Twitter and Instagram, it's Monty_Roberts. Easy peasy. They kept it simple for you so you could remember.
We try. That's right. Yeah, it's all about Monty. Yep. But where do they find the app? That's
where do they find the app? Go to your app store on your phone. Whip out your phone. Swipe.
Yep.
Go to your app store. You can find the app. Download it today. It's Horse Radio Network. It's a free app, by the way. And it works for Android and iPhone. Or if you, again, are old school, you could also listen to all of the Horse Radio Network shows, including this one, Horsemanship Radio, on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher.
Many thanks to our sponsors as well. We wouldn't do it without them. Finishline Fencing and Cavallo Horse and Rider, and of course, MontyRobertsUniversity.com. And be sure to visit all the other great shows, too, I do, on the Horse Radio Network at www.horseradionetwork.com. Until next time, have many happy horse hours.